It's a EU is not just an ordinary continent and nations that came together. They are powerful too and respected within the international community. And when you see EU mention or say or come up with something, they are only trying to label Ahmed Tinubu that this is actually what is on ground, so that the government themselves will start balancing themselves in case of any sudden eventuality and Nigeria finally break in that regard. So they will not say they are not getting information, diplomatic information or intelligence report on the situation on ground, that there are possibilities Nigeria can split, anytime, and there's nothing Nigeria can do about it as a nation or as a government. There's nothing they can do about it. Themselves are already seeing the sign on ground. The stuffs like what they are seeing happening in the Congress. There is pressure within the Nigerian regional government or system or people. Indigenous people are saying they don't want to be part of this unity anymore. Then if you go outside that too, you are seeing a different thing happening within the European communities, and they make references to decisions, even to an extent, quoting conventions, that have been entered and treaties that have been entered in a situation like that, where an entire European nations will now decide that based on that, they are just trying to let the government to know, maybe start their normal preparations, maybe ahead of what is likely going to come. And that is why the EU president, not as a nation now, the EU president himself, just like where we have like the AU, chairman or something like that, sending a diplomatic message to the Nigerian government on the development surrounding the possibility that there might be a pronouncement or a sudden recognition of a nation called Biafra any moment from now. But let us look at it. A lot of people does not understand that the Biafra as a nation or as a sovereignty or as a country, whether in different perspective or the way people perceive it, that is no longer existing or have existed in the eyes of the international community. Biafra existed, in the eyes of some international communities and nations. Of course, some powerful political, regional, geopolitical analysts, they are seeing Biafra as a nation still existing. Because if you look at it very well, most of these nations have recognized Biafra, a few years ago, or decades ago, have not renounced their recognition up to this moment. So Biafra is still existing, not be existing on the spirit and consciousness of Nigeria, but to those who understand what it is, it still exists. And remember too that kudos to Philip Effiong for that intelligence that he was actually a place. A lot of people don't know that Philip Effiong did not actually hand over Biafra to surrender to Nigerian government. What we saw in that agreement was a ceasefire agreement.
What is a ceasefire agreement?
It was a ceasefire. There was nothing like surrender of the instrument of Biafra to the Nigerian government. But of course, the media will come with different narratives, trying to change a certain narrative to suit certain interests. But from our findings so far, we came to understand that, the reason why he told them very clearly that if Nigeria do not respect the instrument of this ceasefire, the children of these people will rise up one day and take up the mantle and the struggle of pursuing global stability and recognition of Biafra. So it is a message directly to Aso Rock for them to understand the perspective, where they are trying to send a very serious intelligence signal to Aso Rock, alerting them that these nations, America, Israel, lead government can make any decision at any time, and definitely it is going to have an EU support.
But we've seen how Abada Ahmed has come out to say that as the EU and other international community are the major problem Nigeria is having, saying that why would EU and other international community adhere give consent on the split or of Biafra to exit Nigeria. That is the former Labour presidential vice candidate, Bada Ahmed.
Well, if you are talking about this, I think some of these things you've seen, some of them are there in treaties and conventions that have been entered by some countries and treaties agreed upon by some countries. So if you look at those, some of those conventions and treaties entered, it guarantees self-determination. It guarantees nation, that pursue self-determination. You get to a point that the world will want to listen to, So Nigeria will not be victimized if it definitely break up, or if the EU is trying to send a certain signal to Asurok that it might be going towards this particular direction, and that the Nigerian government should also be put on notice on what is likely, possibly going to happen any moment these global superpowers decide on what to happen. Because people are saying it, of course, definitely, that after the conflict in the Middle East, the next shift of direction and attention will be directed to Nigeria.
But if I may ask you, why is the northern part of the country, why are they scared of division? And they are also in support of Iran, not taking sides with the US government. Knowing now, we've heard a clergyman in the north saying that America is an enemy of Nigeria.
Nobody can say America is an enemy. Most of the America has contributed more than the Fulani
That was what
the Fulani tribe in Nigeria. Yes, America has contributed more than any tribe in the world. America has sustained civilization, and in all ramifications, no matter how you look at it. But the Fulani will want to their radicalized ideology on looking at Nigeria from that angle. Me, I am not against them coming out to protest whatever that is happening in the Middle East. Everybody have rights to protest, to demonstration, to rally. As long as it is peaceful, it is a way of showing. But the funniest thing is that the people of Iran are celebrating, but in Nigeria here, they are protesting what is going on. I don't know whether it is on behalf of Iran, or I don't just know the purpose of which they are marching on the street. You can see extreme cleric scholars making some kind of statement, But if you look at it on the other angle too, it is a signal that Nigeria might be seen globally, because I don't think any Christian in Nigeria is protesting. Why is it that you are creating an image that Nigeria is not a secular nation and Nigeria is an Islamic nation? And when you are being seen to be aligning with people who do not agree with civilization, who do not agree with advancement, and would not agree, that humans should be allowed to exist irrespective of your faith or your belief, then you become a target of these powerful nations, because they will definitely, bring you down. That's not how you go, because both they are the ones who have gone to extra mile to make sure the world get to level of exposure and technology which everybody is enjoying today. So on that note, I don't think it is quite necessary for them. There should be, why is it they are not protesting bad governance in Nigeria? Why is it that they are not protesting the Fulani killings in Nigeria? But they come out to protest the crisis that they also engineered in the Middle East. I don't know what they want to achieve with that.
Because some persons are of the view that now the reason why they are protesting is because Trump might dismantle the Fulani Caliphate, which they allege is the what headquarter of where the terrorists are being breeded. Are you of that view too?
It is expected if that the dismantling they are talking about the Fulani North. I'm not in support of that. What I'm in support of that, give them whatever they want and let Nigeria split. Let them go and do their Sharia and their shite thing on their Sunni stuff, with their own ideology. So that it will not be a threat to anybody. So anybody that want to go and join them and do their bit there. These are exposed, these are nations, these are powerful countries that understand a lot of things, Then allow Christians to have their own safe nation. That is as simple as that. It's not a matter about whether Donald Trump is going to dismantle the Fulani North. It's left for the people of the Hausas to rise in consciousness and begin to question where and how they intend to, reduce or subdue or conquer the Fulani back in the north. As simple as that. So what the most people are asking from the international and powerful nations around the world today that continue living with these people who has radicalized their consciousness to that extent, of killing, cannot be seen or cannot be allowed to be cohabiting with other region, other people who they see as a threat to their religion, a threat to whatever they believed in. So there's no need of cohabiting. Let them stay on their own and do. I think it's as simple as that. So that we'll not start wasting money, wasting diplomacy, sending people up and down at the end of the day. It is one of the problems that Israel is facing today, because it came to a point that they had this understanding that they should allow Hamas and the rest of them to form government and begin to live with Israel. But you look at the consequences of October 7 has triggered a lot of things now in the Middle East, and that is the perspective. I'm thinking that Donald Trump or the U.S. government should not be thinking of trying to enter a northern part of the country just to dismantle Fulani. No, I think that for me it does not really reveal the reason why we should be able to pursue that ideology.
But sir, Sheikh Gumi yesterday, while he was preaching during the message, he said that they would not allow America to take over the sovereignty of Nigeria. That nobody can take over the sovereignty of Nigeria. That's it. If Bola Ahmed Tinubu has handed over the sovereignty of the country to America, that they in the north would not allow such thing to happen. Not under.
There's nothing they can do. Well, unless America have not decided. What is Sheikh Gumi talking about? There's nothing they can do. Unless Bola Ahmed Tinubu they are calling, or they are trying to tag him one thing or the other. Or it has no good relationship with the United States of America. But they know that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is completely pro-North. There's nobody, anything they're going to tell me. And he has a deep level of sympathy for the Northern Muslim ideology in him. He's also a Muslim, and he knows what is on ground, what is at stake. And they see him from that perspective as a fellow Muslim too. So they cohabit, they reach an understanding. They might have different views to governance, but not when it comes to what the purpose of which that concept in Nigeria pertaining to Fulani agenda. When it comes to that, I think Bola Ahmed Tinubu is being seen as part of them completely. So whether if America decides anything today, Nigeria will not have any option than to pursue or go that direction. If the U.S. government or any other powerful nation decide today that Nigeria will split, Bola Ahmed Tinubu have zero contribution to that. Northern, whatever you call them, Gumi, have zero contribution to that. They must comply. Yes, there are a level of which sovereignty can be lost. Sovereignty can be lost. Yes, a lot of nations around the world have lost sovereignty. Yes, you can see, Nigeria has also lost sovereignty. We are militarily, the U.S. military is here, and most part of Nigeria is under Boko Haram. So where is the sovereignty? So they have lost sovereignty completely. The borders are pulled. Nigeria is not a sovereign nation. It's not a sovereign nation and has never been a sovereign nation. And I can tell you, because all the attributes and things that make up a sovereign nation, Nigeria seems to don't have them even up to 5%. So that's why Jonathan said it very clearly, that Nigeria is not even a nation, talk less of being a country.
Okay, thank you for always coming out to air your views. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chinedu, the Onyedu himself, the leader of the universe. Thank you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, SC viewers. If you are new to the channel, kindly like, share, subscribe, and please do not forget to hit the notification bell. Mr. Chinedu Michael, there seems to be fire on the mountain currently in Nigeria. This after the United States of America came out heavily against Sharia, against Hizbah. And of course, they have even told the Nigerian government to cut tie with those who sponsor terrorism in Nigeria. But beyond that, let us quickly look at what is coming from the Southeast, rejecting every Sharia move from the North. Let's start from there.
Yeah, it has to be rejected and rejected completely. We have seen several movements from the North when Buhari was in power. But most of this movement was indirectly powered by Muslims from the West, Yoruba land. Let me just put it that way. You know, until there was a massive resistance from the Christian communities in the West here in the Yoruba land that spoke against the overwhelming push to carry out some level of Islamization policies in Nigeria under Buhari as at that time. All of a sudden, we thought that this thing has actually, got down. But to some people, who are on the know, predicted that the stepping down of that push as at that time, they will still need to go back and begin to redraw the map at some point, and it became very clear that the revelation was also being thrown open by His Royal Majesty Igwe, Lawrence, the man who challenged the federal government to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in a health summit in Abuja, where he told the Oni of Ife clearly that the Igbo nation would not be part of the Southern Traditional Rulers Council. The word council there means that it will be a government. It will become a government that will push some level of policies, And the fear there is that apart from that, the Oni of Ife will now become a permanent member of that Southern Traditional Rulers Council,
Well, let me jump in here. This portion of the United States of America, we understand that the head of the Fulani Caliphate is Sokoto, and the chairman the permanent chairman of Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs in Nigeria is Sultan of Sokoto. Now, saying that America is against Hizbah and Sharia law, this looks like a direct confrontation with the Fulani Caliphate, the Sharia, where Sultan of Sokoto is the head.
I'm telling you, they are keep pushing it to the south part of the country through the traditional institution. Because if you don't understand what Oni actually meant and why the Igbo people from the south and the southeast, even from the middle belt, are saying no to that agenda, is that the Ile-Ife kingdom, the Oni of Ife, will become a permanent, traditional ruler in that council. Then why the Sultan of Sokoto will become, the supreme leader of all the traditional institutions in Nigeria, including South, Southeast, Southwest, and of course, Middle Belt and other northern part of the country. So the question is this: how can two traditional rulers, become permanent? The question is, how can this thing be manipulated to that extent that we'll have one supreme leader and we'll have one permanent leader? Then they'll be able to take a certain decision. That is another plan to make sure that they keep on to push the religious Sharia through the traditional institutions. But coming to what United States actually meant by giving such conditions, because they have gone and they have done their findings and find out that, Sharia is a threat to Christians in Nigeria. Sharia is just the rules and regulations that guides Islam, and there's no how you are going to separate Sharia from Islam. Sharia and Islam works hand.
Mr. Chinedu, let us quickly look at this development, a situation where it has been reported that there's an attempt to have a traditional ruler council of Nigeria, where the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the head of the Fulani Caliphate in Nigeria, will be a permanent chairman. The same way he is the permanent chairman of the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs in Nigeria. And this, of course, has seen traditional rulers in the south, particularly the southeast and south, are saying, no, this cannot happen. We have never been conquered in the past. After all, in the time of Osman Afodo, he never conquered the south, the southeast, even the southwest. Now, this time around, politically, we will not accept it. Let me get it for you.
All right, definitely, that is what that was already buried, that was made public by the Igwe Lawrence, that was thrown to the public again. The issue has actually been there. people are struggling to define and find out actually the purpose and the mission, where we have the Sultan of Sokoto, coming up in disguise with another policy of trying to Islamize the nation through the traditional leaders.
But I think this one looks like through the back door.
Yes, of course. Now that's what I'm saying. Now, after the third agenda under Buhari, they come up again. So you can know very clearly now that their mission is just beyond political conquest. They just want to look at ways they can penetrate, in disguise through the traditional institutions, through the traditional leaders, to be able to paint a certain picture that it is about politics, it's politically motivated, we need to bring traditional rulers, traditional institutions to the policies before the federal government to be legislated under the Senate. When you couple all these things now, the question is why make the Sultan of Sokoto the permanent supreme leader of all the traditional institutions in Nigeria? If you come to history, actually, the Sultan of Sokoto is no match to the Kingdom of Ife. It's no match to Ife. These are just institutions that was created by the colonial masters to make certain interests look as if it is worth it, but it is not worth it. So those are not the oldest kingdoms in Nigeria. Then how come Sultan of Sokoto